Good morning, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. How's everyone doing today? Hope it's going well for you wherever you are, whatever you're up to. And we are. I'll just explain what we're up against right off the bat. We are against. I've shown you blue-white spirits. I've shown you Bant spirits, and now I'm showing you a third variant of spirits that I've seen called Curious Spirits. So that's what I'm going to roll with. If you don't know what it is, well, you're about to find out. The variant is relevant in game one, that is for sure. But we're on the play, and we've got a pretty sweet hand, right? We've got the classic turn one Inquisition. We've got another play to follow it up, and we've got the top end locked up with some great catch-all removal and two awesome threats that are both better on the play, especially Liliana. So we just need to draw some lands, but our hand is sweet, and we've definitely got to keep this in a blind game one. And our opponent takes a mulligan. Okay. So far, so good. Let's see what they're up to, even though I've already told you. Yep, it's a Spirits variant. So right now it just looks like a pretty normal blue-white. I don't know how stock Port Town necessarily is. It seems like a fairly free inclusion, but I'm no expert on their land base. But yeah, all the creatures themselves are stock blue-white Spirits inclusions. Now, they're all very good ones. Mausoleum Wanderer is a premier one-drop, if you ask me. I rate that card very, very highly. Selfless Spirit lines up very well against a removal deck. But in my opinion, Rattle Chains is the best card in their hand. They can really 2-for-1 us, blow us out really badly by flashing this in response to removal. Our removal, the only piece we have is slow and clunky. This can even stop a Liliana activation, which is not as bad for us, but still quite good. Plus the fact that it gives other spirits flash, this thing just is really, really good against a deck like ours. I prioritize that very highly as a discard target, and indeed I will take it away from them and pass it back. They're going to play a Mausoleum Wanderer here, I'm sure, unless they draw an Ether Vial. They reveal the island we already know about, and yep, Wanderer it is. Okay. Alright, we draw Scavenging Ooze. So here's the question. Do we play the Ooze or do we play the Thoughtseize? Well, either one is fine. Either one is fine, honestly, but the so let's look a turn or two ahead, right? So of course I still need to draw lands. I still really want to draw lands. If I draw a land, I will be slamming hopefully Liliana the Last Hope, because hopefully it's a black land, right? With that in mind, I would rather discard now to make sure they don't have anything that's going to disrupt my turn 3 plays. And if I don't draw land, so let's say I don't draw land, I'm probably going to have a mana inefficient turn next turn if I play the Ooze this turn. I don't know if that language was too convoluted to follow, but either way, I think it's fine to Thoughtseize here. I also am going to do it before I play the land, because I really don't mind if they just cash in this Mausoleum Wanderer. I don't mind putting them behind on the board that way either. They don't. They drew a Curious Obsession, so this is where the Curious Spirits variant, if that's indeed what you want to call it, gets its name from. This variant was something that I saw getting a little bit of traction, ironically, right before they printed Supreme Phantom, basically, which just kind of changed everything and made the Spirits decks mostly go back toward a more classic tribal shell. But this is a really, really spicy inclusion. So it's an enchantment. Usually enchantments are pretty tough to play in Modern in general. Auras specifically are a little tough to play in Modern because, of course, they open you up to getting 2-for-1, and that's very bad. Exceptions for stuff like Bogles, which of course are hexproof, can't get 2-for-1 that easily. So this one still has that downside, but as soon as you start using it, it's drawing you cards, right? So it has kind of the reverse effect as its upside. I played this deck a couple times just for fun, actually, and I found it quite powerful and quite good. So Curious Obsession is a really nice one. Obviously, it has the downside of you have to sacrifice it if you didn't attack with anything, but with how naturally evasive spirits are, not only can you safely attack just about every turn if you're doing well, but you can also connect and draw cards. So I'm a big fan of this. And in fact, I'm going to take that away because I don't want them to start drawing cards. I think I can still handle what's in their hand quite easily as long as I draw lands. So we've got to play out our forest past the turn, and they'll probably just run out a 2-drop here. Indeed, there is the Selfless Spirit. So, yep, they get the buff. They hit me for 2. Okay, Collective Brutality is a fine draw, but land would have been better. But I'm still not too mad about that. That said, yeah, there's just no real choice but to play this. The Scavenging Ooze is fine, but I'm not ever going to get this out of Grizzly Bear status anytime soon, because even if I play it next turn, again, hoping to draw a land, play a Lily, we've got a bunch of other cards to play once we hit that 3rd land, and again, failing the 3rd land, we'd be brutalitying. So I'm just going to go for the Selfless Spirit here. I'm fine either way. I'm totally fine with them cashing in the Wanderer. That's a card that's a big trouble for me in general. But I guess if I had to pick, I would have removed this in case they have like a Drogskull Captain or something that's a really high priority to remove, or a Spell Queller with one of my spells under it. I would like the Spirit off the table so I can deal with those things more cleanly. That said, taking off anything is just fine right there. They draw another land. They play the Wanderer, 1 unknown in hand. Hitting me for 2, passing the turn. Okay, well, continuing to draw playable cards, but man, no 3rd land over 3 draw steps has been pretty rough. So, now I am finally going to resolve my Skoos. I think that's better than playing Trophy at this particular juncture of the game. Dang, that's bad for me. It's very bad. They found a Curious Obsession. They have the Spirit still around to protect this creature. I'm still choked on mana. And now they're going to start drawing. So we were getting clunked up, but we had so much more value in hand, it wasn't even funny. But since we've bricked on lands for so long, we have not been able to play our most powerful spells. And they're going to start drawing cards. Now, granted, they've still only got 1 in hand. They're hitting lands. It's still not that bad for us. If we had drawn a land here, I would still have been supremely confident. But Tireless Tracker, very, very poor draw. So, what do? We're going to crack in with the Skoos. Obviously, this thing can't block. We might as well start clocking them back. End step, and then upkeep. Or this could even have been draw step. I don't know how many basics they play. Probably enough to not really get, for that not really to matter, but so I guess upkeep is better, playing around the draw step of Spell Queller or something, but we're going to try to go for the Trophy here. We did know that they could activate Spirit in a response. That's totally fine. It's going to just get something off the table. Hyena Umbra. Wow. So the Curious Spirits variant that I played was not this all in on auras and enchantments, but you know, it kind of makes sense. It's this thing's just a draw a card per turn, a big flying clock. Like, it's pretty rough. Pretty rough. That said, if we can draw some lands, and of course we cannot, pretty bad stuff. So we're going to get in with a Scavenging Ooze. We don't rate this card that highly anymore. We just don't have the mana to use it well. Hoping to bait like a Spell Queller if they have one. They don't have one. Or if they do, they're holding it. Then once again on their upkeep, we're going to try for the Assassin's Trophy. But they had the Queller. They were disciplined with it, and I'll just scoop to that. They've just got me. They're going to hit for 4. I'm just too far behind. Man, that was rough. That was rough. So just to recap, we had a really powerful hand. We kept a 2-lander, 25-land deck. Even in a deck like this, you will occasionally get land screwed and choked on mana, and that's exactly what happened to us. I don't think our plays were bad. I don't think our keep was bad. We just did not draw lands. Not much you can do about it. And this shows the power of the Curious Spirits archetype, because let's say they were just straight blue-white spirits. without the green splash for Collected Company and without cards like this to get them a ton of cards. We were choked out, but man, they had very little gas left in hand, and we could have just stayed in the game, gained a little life with Ooze if that's all we could do. Keep cracking in, get a little bit bigger, and I'm sure eventually, hopefully in the next turn or two, we would have hit our third land, and then we would have been off to the races. So, I truly think that this Curious Obsession tech is quite viable in Spirits. Like I said, I played it a little bit before Supreme Phantom came out. I really, really liked the deck, and I'm not surprised to see this particular opponent continuing to play it or experiment with it even post-Phantom. So, we will, of course, be sideboarded for games 2 and 3, but because I've already shown a Spirit sideboard tech against the normal blue-white Spirits, which I will link to in the description below, I won't go back through it here, I'll just link to that. We sided something like that. The major difference is that we're going to try to squeeze in a Golgari Charm. Golgari Charm is already a maybe board card, right? Because the regen can be a combat trick, or the -1/-1 for all creatures can be a kind of a combat trick, like a pseudo fog if they swing all out because they think they have lethal. It can sweep up X1s. There are good windows where it can do that. And, of course, it's even more valuable here because it can just destroy enchantments, and that's quite relevant against this variant. So, check out my sideboard tech in the link below if you're not sure how to sideboard against Spirits. And if you're against this Curious Obsession variant, bring in that Golgari Charm too. Find another slot for that. So, anyway, we got land screwed, and we got beat by some pretty cool, unusual tech. And on to game 2. Let's try to get them. Alright, my friends, game 2 on the play against Curious Spirits, and I like this hand a lot. We do shed some number of targeted discard in hand, or from the 60, post side, and it's always nice when you cut like 3 or 4 of your 6 1-mana discard spells to see one in the opener. You feel really rewarded for having kept some number in. It's kind of perfect because you don't want to see too many. You don't want to see them late game, so you're not likely to, but you've still got one in the opener where it's so great. Fatal Push is obviously fantastic in the matchup. We've got our turn 2 threat. We've got some value out of our mana base. We need to draw some gas off the top probably, but we have a very, very solid keep. And our opponent keeps 7 as well. Let's see what you've got. Okay. So we know Hyena Umbra's in the deck. We saw it last game. Selfless Spirit and Spell Queller are both very stock in any Spirits variant. Tallow Wisp is another very spicy card that is kind of unique to the Curious Obsession variant. So it's a 1/3, and do note that it's one of these weird Kamigawa black spirits that do not fly. Pretty much take it for granted that most spirits fly, but a lot of the ones from Kamigawa block actually don't. And so this is a 1/3, doesn't fly. Whenever you cast a spirit or an arcane spell, I don't know if any of their auras are arcane or if that's just kind of not relevant text, or probably not auras, but any spells at all in the deck are arcane. Not sure, but certainly whenever you cast spirits is relevant. You can tutor up an aura, put it into your hand. That's obviously quite good. It is card advantage and card selection rolled into one on a tribal body. Very, very good in this shell. But we're going to take the Selfless Spirit because we've got a Fatal Push. We can play around the Spell Queller. Right now we're kind of incentivizing them to just play the Tallow Wisp out on turn 2 without being able to follow it up with value. That's what we want to do. And if they don't draw any like 1 or 2 drops between then and now, that's probably what they're going to do, and we're going to get to just answer that thing cleanly without it getting value, and that's our goal. So we get to play the Tarmogoyf here. Pretty nice to get our threat down right away, start the clock, and of course we can play our interaction without our creature lands affecting our sequencing as things stand. Sure enough, they've just got to run out the Tallow-Wisp. Pretty great for us. We just get to Fatal Push it. Unfortunately, we cannot Brutality, because it's a 1/3. That would have been more mana efficient. And we would have been able to hold up our instant speed play. That said, still feeling very good here. Crack in for 3. And Collective Brutality is generally a nice one. So they're pretty clearly holding up Spell Queller. It's really nice when you already have a threat down and they're trying to hold up Queller, because then we just get to get really aggressive. And to that end, drawing another land is not very good here, but hey, at least it lets us painlessly animate this Hissing Quagmire, and we're going to crack in for 5. Really just put the clock on them, see what they do. Alright, here comes the Queller. And yeah, it's going to take the trade with Quagmire. That's just fine with me. I'm very happy to use a land as a removal spell, basically. That's totally fine. And of course, them not getting any other value out of the Queller besides as a 1-for-1. That's always good. Always, always good. And here we see the downside of their variant, where they have these auras, perhaps more than just this one in hand, which are, of course, a little bit underwhelming if you are not able to stay ahead on board, which they are not. That said, we're drawing a lot of lands off the top. We needed gas, and the only gas we've really seen is this Collective Brutality. So, not ideal, but our Tarmogoyf might still get us there. We get to play another manland, we get to hold up Field of Ruin, and they flash into Rattle Chains. I think this has happened in literally now all 3 of my Spirits videos, where I'm like, hey, you know, if they're just flashing in Rattle Chains as a body at the end step and not blowing out my removal, I'm pretty happy with that. But of course, they are incentivized to do so they can stack it up with at least 1 aura, perhaps more. And they're getting aggressive with it. I mean, makes sense, because this thing can't trade with the Tarmogoyf yet anyway. Alright, they have 2 unknowns in hand. They're representing another Queller, and we just... yeah, opposite problem the last game. Now we're flooded. Now we are flooded. So, I still think this is the correct play. We don't want to get blown out by another Rattle Chains or a Queller or really anything else with the Brutality. We're far enough ahead on life total that I think we just have to get as aggressive as possible. And hey, it doesn't look like they have anything to say about it. They're down to 4. That's really nice. I'll play out a Blooming Marsh here because it's ETB tapped and because we have enough mana sinks on board that we don't want to be too stingy with holding up lands for all of the usual reasons. But this is really nice because not only are they obviously dead to a Tarmogoyf hit, they are also dead to Quagmire into the Brutality Drain, which a lot of people don't play around going to 2 against a deck that doesn't play red because they're not worried about Lightning Bolt, but we still do have a tad bit of reach with the Collective Brutality. And yeah, they're staying aggro with the Rattle Chains, and look at this. We're just drawing lands. We're just drawing lands. It kind of sucks, but this is why we play so many utility cards in our land base. Because if these were just normal lands that we've been flooding on, we would actually start to look like we're in a lot of trouble here. But the fact that we have these 2 Hissing Quagmires, which are not even our premier attackers, but just a reasonable one, means that we get to just keep doing good things even when we're flooding very badly. So they're going to take the block, sure. Alright. Hissing Quagmire gets in. Alright, let's go for the drain. Do we have the reach? We have the reach. Beautiful. Okay. Pretty classic example of just Tarmogoyf going all the way. Again, of course, we had assistance from the Quagmire. Very, very relevant assistance, I might add. Taking care of a Spell Queller. Cracking in for 2. This Death Touch ability. Like I've said in deck text before, it is not the best manland in Modern, not even close. It's kind of in the mediocre tier. But sometimes Death Touch is really, really, really nice. And you know, of course, Inquisition, Fatal Push, all these cards were great. Brutality finished him off, while also doubling his removal, of course, if we had needed it to. But yeah, on the play, Tarmogoyf, even if we're not up to much else, you know, a lot of the other stuff we're up to is kind of medium. Brutality drain you for 2 is medium. Investing 4 mana into a 2/2 attacker is medium. But the power of Tarmogoyf, and then everything else was just good enough to get us there. So, yeah, fairly mediocre display from our side of the table, but it was just enough to work. And let's go to Game 3, see what we can do when we're on the draw. Alright, folks, Game 3 against Curious Spirits, and we are on the draw. Just like Game 1, we have a Liliana the Last Hope in the opener. Unlike Game 1, we definitely have the Mana to cast her this time, so that feels pretty good. Fatal Push is great. Scavenging Ooze is solid in the matchup. It's solid for sure. Our lands are a little clunky. Field of Ruin is not something that's as high of a priority, but, you know, if we need to make another green mana out of these, we will be able to. They're going to present some dual lands, and yeah, this hand's totally fine. Opponent will keep 7 as well. Certainly seen better hands, but this is not one we can mulligan. They've got a Port Town. They've revealed the plains, and they're going to pass. Interesting. Okay, yeah, Tassiger's fine, but our hand continues to be on the slower side, and he does not change that. Alright, there's the plains and a Supreme Phantom. This is pretty nice for us. We were pretty happy to Fatal Push anything they played there, especially a Supreme Phantom. Nice high-value target. And Verdant Catacombs is a fine draw here. Our hand continues to be slow, but this is going to let us kind of painlessly diversify our colors, and we were always just going to run out the Skoos there this turn, unless we drew something like a discard spell, probably, or a different 2-drop threat. Moorland Haunt. Okay, this is a card that's really cool. I love little value lands like this. I always have. Even back to my kitchen table days, if I ever built a spirit deck and had no knowledge of the meta, or just playing with friends, I would have seen this like in a $1 rare pile at the store and been like, yes, give me this card. Always loved cards like this, and of course it's a pretty nice play for them on paper, right? Because they get to play that, they get to cleanly play around my Scavenging Ooze. This is taking away food for my Skoos. It gets them a body. And it's a very mana-efficient play for them, and it does not expose another creature to another piece of spot removal. Very, very good play for them. I like that a lot. Unfortunately for them, we get to just as cleanly answer back with a Liliana the Last Hope to take care of that token while ticking up. Again, the fact that this card can tick up to kill things is just so powerful, I cannot do it justice. Of course, it only kills X1s, but my goodness, is that a powerful, powerful thing. So, a Tireless Tracker is a completely fantastic draw. Our hand is still slow, and it hasn't really gotten any quicker, but now look at the board state. Look how far ahead we are on board. This is a big, big, big problem for them. We have a 2/2 Ooze that's going to compete over the graveyard value for them and keep clocking, potentially get bigger. And wow, do we have the late game locked up with Tracker and a Fetch Land, plus Tassiger and more lands. Yeah, feeling pretty good. They're just going to play a land and pass, so they're representing Queller, they're representing all kinds of things. Assassin's Trophy is a good one. Any piece of removal is pretty fine here. So we're going to try to bait out the Queller by getting in with the Ooze. If they do anything funky, we do have Trophy. We do have Last Hope. Nothing. Alright, free attack is fine with me. So here we have to go for the Queller. Or, excuse me, the Tracker. They might have the Queller. They don't. Okay, fair enough. I'll pretty happily just get all my clue value here and now. And take up the Lillian Pass. Nebelgast Herald. Okay, flash flying 2/1. ETB tap target creature an opponent controls. Fair enough. Down goes my tracker. Not that it could block anything except maybe a Tallow-Wisp anyway, but certainly fine with me. Curious Obsession. Alright, so that explains why they so aggressively flashed in something that didn't get them any great value out of the ETB and also dies to Liliana, because now it does not die to Liliana, and they get to hit us. Interestingly, well, first of all, I'll just crack the clue here while we're in the combat phase, just so I can F6 basically, and all that good stuff, but so let's see. Yep, so they're going to go for me. Here's another reason Liliana the Last Hope is great. She is kind of a must-answer card for them, at least over the medium term. Clearly they don't think so in the short term because they did not attack her immediately. But over the medium term, she's a must-answer. But if they attack her with a Curious Obsession enchanted creature, they don't get the draw. So for that reason, they kind of, I don't know what's in their hand, but they feel they had to attack us. And I'm sure that's the right play, but it's just really another nice upside of Liliana in the matchup. We draw Damnation, not the best on this board with our really high value plays, but it's kind of a good ace in the hole, I suppose. We'll right away get our clue value, and we're going to crack a clue because we don't have anything super great to do right now. Another Tassiger. Alright, not the best. Let's get in with our things. Once again, we're pretty happy to try to draw out a Spell Queller or something like that, but they're just going to take 6. Okay, fair enough. We're going to tick up the Liliana here. And they're going to flash in the Rattle Chains. Alright, well. Now I see why they were holding up plays, but we get to respond to the Rattle Chains by trophying this Herald. And while that does give them another land, and it does put them back onto Spell Queller, potentially, and indeed it puts them back on Moorland Haunt, this is still very, very good for us. We do get to basically 2-for-1 them. We removed 2 cards. We gave them a land in response, but I'm still so happy to do that. And with the Rattle Chain still on the stack, we're going to get to eat the Nebelgast Herald. And that works. Okay, sweet. Yeah, so great turn for us. Even though our hand is not doing all that much that's exciting, we can still cast a Tassiger. And they're going to put down a Supreme Phantom. Alright, fair enough. Another Obsession. Alright, so they've got the tools to rebuild, that's for sure. They've got the tools to stay competitive. Wow, another one. Holy moly. So, all of a sudden, with a Phantom in their second main phase, and now a couple +1/+1 auras, that +1/+1 doesn't look like much, but remember that the printing of Supreme Phantom, which is an Anthem +1/+1, is what put Spirits as a tribe on the map. The fact that they do have some grindy power, the fact that they can end step a lot of stuff, the fact that they all fly mostly, means that even these kind of innocuous looking buffs help them turn the corner really, really quick. And of course, Curious Obsession is not only an innocuous looking buff, but an innocuous looking draw spell. Combined, again, I really think that card's pretty good. So they can take Lily off the table, or they can attack us, or they can kind of hedge and do both. They're just coming at us for 6, drawing 2 cards. They're just on the plan of ignoring Liliana. Alright. I mean, I get it. That's probably the correct play here. What did they find? Nothing. They're going to play in the main phase. Alright. Okay, Collective Brutality. Yeah, fine card in the matchup, but their stuff is a little bit too big right now unless we're able to chain her +1 into a -2. We'll have to see. Once again, I think we just kind of want to attack and kind of force their hand. Alright. They're not declaring any blockers. So we're going to want to crack at least 1 clue this turn anyway. Let's do it now. That's going to put them to 8. It's going to get us across for 8. And it's going to put them to 2, which once again is in the range of our reach of our Drain You for 2. So sure, let's do this. Draw a Tireless Tracker. Okay. Our hand's clunky, but we got in. We're going to tick the Lily up here, hoping to bait out something. So if they have another hexproof thing or whatever, that means the coast is going to be clear for our Drain You for 2. Drog Skull Captain. Perfect. Now this is great for them. This is a great play. They get to basically counter our activated ability here. They get to make their board huge. So 3, 6, 11. And this gets them exactly lethal. So our opponent is sequencing really, really intelligently, in my opinion. Playing this very well. That's why they hit us for directly last turn. They're just ignoring the Lily. I think that's correct. Unfortunately for them, our sequencing has also been good. Once again, we did this then and there to try to bait out something like that. And because that worked, we know the coast is clear to just simply drain them for 2 and escape potentially by the skin of our teeth. Looks like we're really far ahead, right? We've got 2 massive things. They both get recursive value. We've got a Clue on board. We've got a Liliana about to ultimate. We've got a handful of gas. We've got an answer to the board that gets out of control. That does not always get it done against spirits because they can just tempo you out. Even in a situation like this where we had a ton of value, that was a really good tempo play. They counter the activated ability at instant speed, and all of a sudden they just have assembled lethal. And you can't block them. It's kind of crazy. That's why spirits decks are good. But we are able to just get them with the collective. And yeah, otherwise, you know, if that collective had been countered, I think we would have just been dead. We didn't have enough mana for a damnation. We only had 3 mana up. And, you know, maybe we could have cracked a clue and found a fatal push or something, but otherwise we were pretty cold. But very good games, very well played. As I've said a couple times already, I'm a huge fan of this Curious Obsession variant, and I will go on record now as saying I would not be surprised if this becomes more popular than it currently is, because, like I said, it started to get a little bit of traction, and then Supreme Phantom was printed and people seem to kind of forget about it or move away from it, but I don't see any reason these things can coexist together. I also don't know for sure that Bant is the way to go, at least the Bant that you see mostly these days with Collected Company and Ether Vial coexisting. I have never been entirely comfortable with that. They make each other worse. It's playable, it's viable, and there are a lot of upsides to doing it, and both cards are very, very strong, but it might be better to just stay pure Coco with Bant, or just to play pure blue-white in general. And I don't know for sure, but our opponent might be playing these cards instead of Ether Vials, and that just gives the deck a lot more gas. Obviously reduces the consistency of its mana production, it reduces its acceleration, but man, I wouldn't be surprised if this catches on more than it currently is. So anyway, now you have seen Golgari Midrange taking down every viable form of spirits currently in Modern. We have seen games against blue-white Vial spirits, we have seen games against Bant Company spirits, and we have now seen games against Curious spirits. So they're always fun matchups, they're always intense, they're always really close, and yeah, this is what Magic is all about, in my opinion. These are some of the greatest incentives to playing Modern. We've got 2 interactive decks duking it out, doing some very cool stuff, and we got there. So good games, well played. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the content, please do not hesitate to give me a like and a subscribe, and share any feedback in the comments that you care to share. My channel is still small enough that I can read and respond to everything, so let me know what your thoughts are. But until then, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you for the next video. Take it easy.